So, Tunde, welcome to London.
Thank you very much.
What brings you over here on this occasion?
Oh, a variety of meetings. With key partnerships that we are developing and we have, and also attending the Capacity Europe Awards ceremony last night, which I'm delighted to say we won an award as Best Infrastructure and Best Data Center Innovation.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
You must be very proud.
Very well. Oh, yes. I was very proud to receive the award and great international recognition for what we've been doing.
And you won something in Monaco, didn't you, this year?
Yes, we did. That was the Data Cloud Awards. We won one of the awards there for the geographical location. Yes.
Well, as CEO of Rack Center, Africa's only carrier-neutral Tier 3 data center, I'm looking forward to hearing your views on the digital infrastructure market in Africa. But maybe we could just start with your journey. Where did it all start?
It started in Lagos in Nigeria, and with my dad, Nigerian, and my mum, English from Stoke-on-Trent. And they met in London, University of London, and when she went back with him to Nigeria and lived the rest of her life in Nigeria. And they both passed away about 18 years ago.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
And that's where it started, thank you. I went to school in Lagos, a Catholic school called St. Gregory's College, and King's College, Lagos.
Okay.
And did my A-levels there. After my A-levels, I was fortunate to win the Shell Scholarship to study mechanical engineering in Wales, in South Wales. What was Polytechnic of Wales then is now called the University of South Wales.
Okay, is that in Cardiff?
In Cardiff, yes, just outside Cardiff. I was based in Pontypridd,
okay.
in the Welsh Valleys. And
did you learn much about singing there? Did that help you develop your singing skills?
Well, I have a musical background as well. I play the pipe organ. I started playing the piano when I was about 8 years old. I then started to learn the pipe organ in church in Lagos. And at the age of about 13, I was the assistant organist for the main Methodist church there, so the Methodist Church Cathedral. So I had that musical background going into Wales, and great because the musical heritage in Wales is amazing. It's nothing, I mean, you just hear the Welsh male voice choir, and Wales has a fantastic, it was one of my favorite national anthems, the Welsh national anthem. The other favorite one is the South African one. It's, it's pretty good. And so that was being through to the university stage. And my first job over about 2 years was as a total quality management engineer with one of the Turner Newell companies. Turner Newell was one of the big engineering conglomerates in the UK then. Very interesting, it's now what's called Six Sigma.
Yeah, we've all heard about that.
Yes, and it really was how you transform quality management with use of techniques such as statistical process controls, a lot of the techniques that Japanese used, and Taguchi and so on, and the management techniques that help you optimize, deal with the people factors in quality management. Very interesting 2 years. 2 years fixed contract. And it's in retrospect, you see what's happened with Six Sigma, and really it's actually before Six Sigma, but essentially putting in place Six Sigma to transform quality in this company. It was actually called Cooper's Filters. And after that, I won a scholarship from Ford of Europe to study manufacturing systems engineering at Cranfield University.
Okay.
And actually that's how I then started to get into information technology. A lot of what I did, first with my final year project at Polytechnic of Wales, in helping Amersham International automate the production process. of course, that needed the use of barcodes. Barcodes were just coming in the mid-80s then, and innovating around that to automatically, load these little white packets with bottles of vials of medicines and so on. Each one being unique. So you had to be able to think and link back to exactly what the customer requirements were to put the bottles in the right place. So that required quite a lot of information technology integration from what was the old mainframes into controlling a manufacturing system. In Cranfield, I was involved with some key projects for Ford of Europe, which involved Ford of Europe IT, in transforming paint shop technology and paint shop quality, and also in optimizing the production, some of the production logistics of car manufacturing in Europe. So I naturally went into Ford of Europe IT, and a role which I took for 4 years. So a couple of the key roles I played there was around the global architecture for the Ford Mondeo, which was the first global Ford car. A very interesting project. And then I went on to lead the client-server team for product development systems for Ford of Europe. I then left Ford after 4 years and joined what was Hoskins.
Okay. Did that become Capgemini?
It became Capgemini.
Yes. Okay.
So I came into Hoskins the year before Capgemini then came in and took it over. And fantastic journey through the 90s, because it's a core team there that then really started the journey of Capgemini being one of the top 5 consulting companies. Gemini Consulting then was a key strategy consulting firm, a bit like McKinsey, where we brought strategy consulting and technology consulting into one to transform businesses. And some of that experience then has had an impact in the way I operate in my leadership style, and in a lot of the way we do some of the things we do at Rack Center now. One of the key roles I had leaving Capgemini really was with one of the M&C Sashay companies. They started a company called EMC Sashay. One of the starting directors there, which grew very, very quickly. And after a couple of years there, I then joined EGG as the director for digital services. Okay. And how do you bring technology to help people figure out their financial life? A lot of people talk about fintech these days, but we did fintech 18 years ago with some excellent innovation with EGG. And then moving on from EGG was when I joined BP. I took on the role as a global applications director for their corporate functions part of the business. And from BP, I joined the UK government. This was about 2006. As Chief Technology Officer for Criminal Justice, and I then went on to be the IT Director for Ministry of Justice. Had just been formed then, if you recall, around about...
It's a merger, wasn't it,
of all the different parts, quite a lot of the different parts of the criminal justice system came into the new Ministry of Justice. There was a Department for Constitutional Affairs, there was prisons, courts. They all came in together to form the Ministry of Justice. And my role as CTO for Criminal Justice was helpful because I'd built the relationships with stakeholders across criminal justice in putting together the structure for Ministry of Justice in technology management. And through the 2000s, I'd spent my entire professional career in Europe in a variety of global roles, some good global experiences. In Capgemini, I'd worked in Singapore with UBS in Singapore, worked with Merrill Lynch in New York, Swiss Life in Switzerland, which was a good international experience to have. I'd thought about going back to Nigeria to take those skill sets back there.
Well, it's an amazing set of experiences, always innovating, always at the cutting edge, for 10 years in different roles.
Yes.
And with a global view as well, which must be very valuable when you moved back to Nigeria. Yeah. So what were the most valuable lessons, would you say, you learned in that 10-year period in the UK? In the context of what you're doing now?
Yes. One's the international experience. That's been very helpful because operating in Africa is very diverse. And having worked in a very diverse international environment, it helps you very quickly understand the cultural differences you have to understand quickly and adapt to. I find not just in across Africa, but actually in getting back to Nigeria and understanding how to successfully operate as a leader and a manager in Nigeria and in Africa. That was very helpful. So other aspects of leadership styles. I had some great leadership coaching when I was at EGG and BP. I found that very valuable. There's a mantra I have that impossible is something that happens in someone else's context. And you can make a seemingly impossible happen by creating the right context for it, declaring it possible, and it can be. And as you've seen quite a lot of the environments where we've had to innovate rapidly, we've had to take on, some very, very complex organizational change challenges through technology. In a very, very rapidly changing world, you suddenly figure out a way to make a seemingly and innovate through making a seemingly impossible situation become possible. And those key planks of my experience I find very, very useful to date. And the people piece, I'm a people person. I think great teams transform different things in many ways. And those are the kind of experiences I found that have proven very useful for what I've been doing over the last 9 years or so in Nigeria and in Africa.
And what prompted the move back to Africa 9 years ago?
I'd been thinking about it for some time. When the opportunity came, Access Bank in Nigeria Access Bank in Nigeria really was it had a young MD and deputy managing director that had a fantastic vision for the company.
And were they Nigerian-based as well?
Nigerian-based, yes. I was very impressed with them and the vision they had for the company. And they enrolled me on that vision, really, to transform the company into a leading African bank. At the time, it was about number 11 or number 12 in Nigeria, and I took on the role to be the group CIO in 2009, and I left the UK to Nigeria then. I joined the bank. I was with the bank for 4 years. And in the 4 years then, we transformed IT. We actually set new standards of technology in banking in West Africa. We very, very rapidly grew the bank across Africa, implementing in different countries. That was very useful because it gave me an African perspective on establishing new businesses and how banking actually works in different jurisdictions in Africa and different cultures across Africa, and also how to lead and manage in the Nigerian context. And we did that. Access Bank is one of the top banks in Nigeria now, and it's Pan-African.
Did I read somewhere that you won an award in banking as well?
Oh yes, the transformation of Access Bank. We took over this bank called Intercontinental Bank. It was about 5 times the size of Access Bank. And I think we avoided getting indigestion in the process of, taking on board this bank. It really was quite a challenge. But we got through it, and the entire bank, the leadership there was fantastic. It was a great team. We combined both banks in about 6 months to technology. And that was a record time at that scale. And I
guess your experience in enterprise architecture helped that transformation.
Exactly. Yes. In transforming IT in the bank, the Access Bank itself, the architectural approach to transformation, people technology transformation. I joined the leadership team there. We applied a lot of that knowledge into the way we put the bank at the top of the pile with respect to technology and structured process. The bank was the first to really achieve the PCI, payment systems security standards in West Africa. Quite a few firsts, which we did. It was what we needed to do. not for the sake of it being first, but for the transformation we needed, yes. And the award you talked about was from the Financial Times, the banking technology journal. I think it's a banking technology journal. They gave Axis Bank won an award for the speed and success of that transformation.
Wow.
Yes.
Fabulous.
Of course, we bedded down the integration of the bank after the actual initial combination. Because you can do your due diligence as much as you like. You see the real issues once you're in running actually taking over the bank. But nevertheless, it was very successful. Having done that, job done, I then decided it was time to move on to other challenges, and I joined a company called Emerging Market Payments. Then a company owned by one of the British private equity companies called Actis. My role really was MD CEO for West Africa and some of the Central African countries to transform the business in Nigeria. Nigeria was one of the scale opportunities they saw. How do you establish the business at scale there? And we very, very quickly moved that brand to one of the top 3 in the payments. It's a payments processing company, and transformed the footprint of the business across West Africa. And that gave me some good, detailed Africa perspective in what we were doing there, gaining the market leadership. Now, how did I get into Rack Center? This is quite interesting. Because I didn't just say had the Rack Center opportunity come up. When I was being interviewed for the job with Access Bank, I asked about one of the key challenges. Well, we need to build a data center. I said, well, why would you want to build a data center? Just at the point where you need the capital for the bank's capital adequacy to grow the bank's balance sheet. And you'd be putting a lump of infrastructure expense on your balance sheet that was a non-earning asset. When I was in BP, we outsourced. I was involved. It was at the time when BP decided to let go of about 400 owned data centers into 3 mega data centers that were outsourced. Went into strong partnerships, but outsourced. When I was in criminal justice in the UK, we didn't build data centers. We had key outsourcing relationships that we optimized, but they were outsourced. So I thought it was a bit odd that a bank would want to build a data center. And I went over to Lagos and looked out for all the co-location companies. There wasn't any. There were a few, but not what I would put the bank assets in.
And what year was this?
2009. Okay. So we built a data center. And we built it to good quality standards. It was built to tier 3 standards. We didn't certify it because it's
not. This is Rack Center now?
This was
is the bank?
The bank.
Ah.
Yes, 2009. The data center went live in 2010. Okay, we built it with a company called Dimension Data. Then was a key partner. And we set a standard. And we used to have people come around from banks across Africa to have a look at this. I mean, it was totally focused on what the bank needed. We didn't just, put lots of money into what, it was but at the right quality level and to tier 3 standards. We didn't bother to have it certified then because, we're not a commercial data center, but we knew the standards we built it to. It also provided actually the insight on how you engineer power to operate effectively in the environment, in the West African environment. I remember thinking to myself, not too long into that project, thinking, Tunde, you're a mechanical engineer. Start thinking like one in this environment. And you've got to engineer this thing to deliver the right engineering, the challenges. So we had some innovations on optimizing power in a challenging environment. And that's lived through some of the innovations we've carried into Rack Center now. Having built that experience, if you look through my career, I've always been a business transformation through technology person, not an infrastructure person. The infrastructure and the quality of infrastructure is a means to an end.
Yes, enabler.
And it's an enabler. And we built a data center. We needed to. It was an enabler. I didn't want to, but we had to. it's a distraction. A CIO has to focus on transforming the business, not on running a data center. And I still coach CIOs on that. Is in this day and age where you have a rack center in Nigeria, building your own data center is a quick exit on your career, because you're spending the company's hard-earned capital on what you really don't have to. You're distracted in building it. You're distracted in running it. But you see, when I did that, I didn't have a choice. But we had to. But now you have a choice. You don't have to. You optimize the business and focus on the business optimization. Now, when I left Access Bank and moving into emerging markets payments, I'd heard about Jagal looking at the data center marketplace. I was introduced to them given the expertise I built in building something over there.
Jagal?
Jagal, Jagal. Jagal is a fantastic company. It's a conglomerate in Nigeria. It's a diversified business invested in oil and gas companies, energy company. It's also diversified into other investments in health, personal health care, property portfolios. That's complementary to its core energy business, which is around oil and gas fabrication, and some fantastic joint ventures. It operates to international standards. So it's a great company where companies need local knowledge with joint venture partnerships to be successful in the marketplace. So it was a natural, with their interest in the data center business, that was where I got involved with Jagal, and hence the experience and the rack center journey into my now becoming the MD of rack center. So in 2014, I played the role to transform the emerging markets payments business. It had, built the right momentum for which Actis exited a few years after to a company called Network International. So having sort of jobbed on there, I joined Jagal to be MD CEO for Rack Center, and I'd been involved in the Rack Center journey indirectly, but then I took the executive role in July 2014, and here we are now. That's been the journey so far.
So 2014 to 2018, 4 years.
Yes.
What would you say were the biggest challenges of those 4 years in building Rack Center?
Well, yes. In many emerging markets, and I think the same thing happened over here in the early days of the data center, transformation, the journey here from the mid to late 90s, right through the 2000s, changing mindsets. You don't have to build your data center at the scale. Interestingly, people say the power would have been a challenge, wouldn't it? Well, I'm a mechanical engineer. That helps. I talked about the background in building the blueprint, I guess, for the kind of power infrastructure architectures required for success. So that was helpful. I actually turned that around the other way. That our unique value proposition to companies in Africa, because of the power problems, is you don't have to worry about that. We worry about that. We worry about that 24/7. You worry about your business. If you build a data center, you have to worry about power. And, it's a distraction. So that really wasn't the challenge, but an opportunity. Building the brand has been a fantastic experience. It's been a great journey. I have a great team. We've got a great team at Rack Center. We've always operated at to world-class standards in terms of the design. We have a great partnership with a Bedroom Group, British company. Great quality technology that they have. So we've put together, the challenge is putting together the optimized ecosystem for the environment we're in. We have what I call the 90-90 challenge, especially in Lagos. 90% humidity, 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And despite that, we run at an average of about 1.4 PUE. We see about 1.25, 1.3 now and then. So that's been a challenge. That's also been a bedrock of success in terms of what we've done. We successfully doubled our capacity which went live in 2016. And we delivered that to all quality parameters, actually exceeded quality parameters, below budget and ahead of time. The challenge we've had, though, was we implemented this into the recession in Africa. If you recall, I mean, Nigeria went into recession 2016 after the change of government, 2016, 2017. The price of oil had crashed globally. Africa was going through a commodities challenge. Many of the economies were in recession. So companies were thinking about how to survive, never mind co-locating and so on. But nevertheless, through that challenge, we continued to invest in the business, we continued to invest in the brand, we continued to invest in what we are about. I mean, 2015, we were the first African company to have won an award at the Data Center Dynamics here in the UK, something we were very proud of. For the success of the expansion project that we put in place. The first African company to have been finalist in 4 different categories 3 years consecutively. So some of those things that we were proud of, which we were doing during the challenging time in a recessed business environment. Nevertheless, we started to, and we're truly carry neutral. Through this phase, we continue to build the ecosystem, and we continue to work on changing mindsets. That's been a huge challenge, changing mindsets. With the banks, you don't have to build a data center. We also had to build a track record of reliability, trust, and so on, to prove to the business environment that this is a data center company you can actually trust to outsource to. And that has been something we've been through successfully. And we're very proud and pleased with where Rack Center is now. As we say, Rack Center, we're proudly Nigerian. You know, we're truly African. And we have good, strong global recognition. And on that platform now, we're now building that as an African company. And we're expanding scale. We're doubling our capacity right now. And it's a critical scale phase for us. We're now doubling into 1.5 megawatts. We're now a megawatt company. And with other megawatt locations. And the market has changed. Now the scale is coming into the market. And now we've now got the basis to transform across Africa, because we believe we've built a trusted global brand that's anchored in Africa right now in Rack Center.
And how do you see the digital infrastructure market developing in Africa?
Exciting, for a variety of reasons. If I go back to the mobile telephony days, you know, the success of that has been fantastic, way beyond people thought. Africa, given the spending, you know, powers in the continent. Why? The business model, the customer model changed into a pay-as-you-go, from a prepaid to a prepaid model, pay-as-you-use it, pay-as-you-go. Okay. Progressively over the last few years, the fiber penetration in Africa, into Africa, the last 1,000 kilometers or whatever, has been improving. Africa is pretty well served by undersea cables. You have 5 undersea cables that serve the Atlantic coast of Africa and the Pacific coast of Africa. On the east, you have about 3 other undersea cables. And the challenge has been, how do you get the broadband penetration inland into Africa? And that's been progressing very well. I have some great companies like Liquid Telecom. They've been doing a lot of work. They've connected Cairo through to Cape Town. They've got some great fiber implementations going on. You know, Orange is doing some great stuff across Africa. So the broadband penetration is getting into Africa now. 4G LTE is going to be very transformative for Africa. You know, all the masts have been there to provide 2.5, 3G telephony capability, which is, I find, has been the amazing infrastructure success in Africa. You know, the mobile telephony is a base that's allowing Africa to now leapfrog the world with fintech and all the other solutions that help agriculture, the agriculture value chain. And the same thing is, I mean, could you imagine having all these masts where you have to have a diesel value chain because you don't have embedded. You have to generate the power for each mast. You have to have the security to support. But nevertheless, it's been the penetration of mobile telephony in Africa. It's been amazing. That success, I believe, is going to be the base for transformation in Africa, because 4G LTE rides off all those masts that have been put in place. So you're going to have a transformation, not fiber to the home or fiber to the point of use as it always used to be. And in just a few years now, it's changed into having a fiber to the hub, where you then deliver the broadband. I always say broadband is what matters, not fiber. But fiber is an enabler to broadband to then distribute the 4G LTE to the endpoints. This is now going to be how you get the consumption of cloud. Once we start to get that broadband penetration, the only way you can actually turn technology into a pay-as-you-go, pay-as-you-use model is cloud. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the volume, Africa is 1.3 billion people. That's bound to really take off. It's the next wave. So after Asia now that people talk about, it's going to be enabled through technology. You see, Africa is what I call the Sashay Economy. People wouldn't buy a liter of milk. They'll buy little, milliliters in little packets and pay as they go. They'll pay a little bit more because they'll actually pay more for the liter at the end of the day, but they buy the sachets. Mm-hmm. The same thing is going to happen with technology. Once you have the broadband delivery point at the end point, about 3 years ago, the Economist analysis showed that, the Economist magazine, the analysis showed that smartphones for the first time exceeded feature phones shipped into Africa and also manufactured in Africa. The phone is going to be the amazing delivery channel of technology into the hands of the volume of the populations you have in Africa. And that has to be underpinned by technology, and that's where the data center growth in Africa is going to come from. The cloud players are going to see the benefits of delivering at the edge, and Africa is going to become an amazing edge of delivery of the Sashay economy,
yes,
this technology and cloud in sachets to the large populations. Now, Africa's got a low median age in the population. It's anything from about 8 to 21. That should become the demographic dividend, and the way it will become a demographic dividend, in my view, is through technology, because through technology you can actually optimize delivery of healthcare, you can optimize the delivery of education, you can optimize the delivery of financial services and bring in financial inclusion, and this all happens at the edge. And that's a great opportunity for companies like ours. We certainly intend to be playing a key role in delivering that capability of infrastructure across Africa. It's been sort of a long analytical answer to that question, but it's important because it paints a full picture of how this transformation is going to happen. Also, if you look at Nigeria's got 195 million people. The statistics show that there are 20 million SMEs. These are economically active entities. 20 million is more than the population of Netherlands, Belgium combined. You could probably add Norway into that, and so, that's 20 million people. That's a third of the population of the UK.
Yes, that's just SMEs.
And the SMEs, they're SMEs. And in that you have, a couple of 100,000 perhaps of what I call the SME of the professions. Mm-hmm. And that's the doctors, the lawyers, and the architects, the architecture firms, engineering firms, and you could add in some of the schools into that and the universities, and they'll need to consume technology in a way to become efficient. So the role we play as RAC Center in that, of course, there's the business opportunity. I actually feel that in creating the ecosystem we've created as a carrier-neutral player, we have about 28 carriers and ISPs directly connected to RAC Center. Each of those 5 undersea cables I talked about, every single one of those is directly connected to RAC Center. So every country on the Atlantic coast of Africa is directly connected to Lagos in a place called Rack Center. So we're able to support this transformation of technology. Of course, we need at the edge. We have to be the edge within the edge. So we have to deliver the infrastructure across Africa from the location we have. But we're also having an increase in the cloud ecosystem over there and the content distribution ecosystem. Content, telephony, video, and so on is growing significantly. And you have to deliver that and deliver it effectively at the edge. And so the role we play beyond the infrastructure opportunity for us is social in a way, because if we deliver the cloud services at the edge to transform these SMEs and the SMEs of the professions, that means they become more efficient. It means that we bring a virtuous cycle of growth into the economies. And if we do, and we intend to do that right, the impact on the economies in Africa is significant indeed. And that's why we've realized that our mission really is not necessarily, hey, to build every data center in every country. No. Really, the mission is to transform African economies through world-class technology infrastructure. That's the end game.
That's a great closing statement. Tunde Coker, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Pleasure.